Well, the presidential candidates butting heads once again in their second and final debate. This one looking much different from the first. Fewer interruptions, Ed.
The debate commission decided it would be best to mute the candidates' microphones while the other was giving their 2-minute initial answer to the moderator's questions. Of course, that didn't stop all interruptions, but each candidate was able to answer the question fully. Here's the deal. The topics range from healthcare to climate change and race in America. The first and main issue of this debate was the coronavirus and how we as a nation move forward from here. So this morning we're joined by our local election expert, Jacob Nyheisel, an associate professor of political science at UB. Jacob, good morning to you. I guess we should just dig into that first issue, the coronavirus. You know, we found out this morning that it could cost about $40 for a vaccine once it's released. And, you know, the president last night said that Johnson & Johnson's clinical trial was going well, though we also found out that there was a pause in that trial because there was an unintended illness that came out of that. How much does this actually weigh on a voter's mind?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the program. I think it's front and center in voters' minds. If you look at the most important issue right now, it's a traditional question Gallup has asked. It's leading the way, and it's really forcing just about everything out of the conversation. And so it's absolutely paramount.
You know, it is front and center, as we're saying, on everybody's minds, but it's also important to note a lot of people have their minds made up. In fact, so many people have already cast their ballot. Are we changing people's opinions at this point?
Likely not. I mean, there's a very thin slice of the electorate right now that we might consider to be a persuadable voter or someone who's undecided at this point. It's just that they know Donald Trump after 4 years, and they absolutely know Joe Biden after a number of years in Washington. So there's just not that much to learn about these candidates.
That's an interesting point, though I thought it was a substantive debate, and I thought that it was a little bit more civil than the first one. And I actually, you know, took away some information. There was some headlines that came out of this one, which is not to say, though, that they didn't interrupt each other. It was just a little bit better to hear each one speak, I suppose. Do you think this will change the course in the future?
That's a great question. I have a hard time seeing debates going away entirely in the sense that tradition dictates that they happen. But under circumstances like this, it's not clear that they're going to have a lot of utility. And I think you have just about every time from these both sides declaring victory and going to their supporters with things that they said that scored some political points. And so really their utility is questionable.
Yeah, and there's so many ways that they can reach voters these days now. Let me ask you, so coronavirus, we said a big takeaway. What else did you take away from this debate? What else do you think people are talking about this morning?
I think some of the candidates, you know, off the cuff remarks, particularly things with respect to the tenor of their comments, certainly things like race and the environment. I think that there was a lot more sort of between the lines than was actually articulated on the stage.
Jacob, one thing that I took away from this was the conversation about foreign transactions and who took foreign money. Why is that important? What are the rules, and what do we need to know about that?
That's a great question. So the rules regarding foreign campaign involvement are quite clear, and that's to say that it's not acceptable. This is a long-standing tradition. It goes back to the idea that you don't want foreign entanglements among your elected officials. And the conversation is coming to the fore now because, of course, there's questions surrounding Donald Trump's tax returns and where some of this money is coming from. And there's also questions right now that are being promoted among a slice of the media that suggests that the Biden camp was in the same position at one point in time. So there's open questions on both ends. It's not clear how much is substantive.
We got 20 seconds left. Real quick, we're seeing some polls here. Biden is up in most of them, but what does that actually mean? Does it matter?
I think it matters. I think it matters because it's consistent. And when you would expect something like a shy Trump effect or some kind of swing that goes on, you expect a lot of movement. And I think the fact that they're so consistent is really the important takeaway here.
Jacob Nyheisel, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We certainly appreciate your expertise.